of the media, welcome to the PVP Weekly Press Conference. With me, as usual, is our General Secretary. He has a number of statements which he'll be reading, at least 4, then we'll be taking questions. Yes?
Yeah. The first statement reads as follows. The People's Progressive Party is dismayed at the regularity with which GCOM's chairman, Dr. Steve Sturge-Bally, is hell-bent on bringing the Guyana Elections Commission into disrepute and dishonor following its engagements with the People's Progressive Party. It is to be recalled that on April 24th, 2016, a PPP delegation led by its General Secretary, Clement Rohi, met with GCOM to discuss inter alia the inconclusiveness of the recently held local government elections and to search for a way out of the tied local authority areas within the meaning of GCOM's legal remit. In the course of that meeting, and at the conclusion of the discussions on this particular matter, a decision was taken by the Commission to the effect that GCOM will write to the General Secretary of the PPP detailing the decisions adopted at the meeting of April 24th. Further, GCOM's chairman gave the undertaking that its CEO will issue a statement regarding the unresolved matters arising out of the tied local authority areas, and that the statement would include a pronouncement on the relevant legislation governing the resolution of same by GCOM. These undertakings were agreed to by all the commissioners present. In fact, there was no dissenting voices on either of the two decisions. Having waited for almost 1 month for GCOM's undertaking to be fulfilled through its chairman, the PPP General Secretary then wrote to Mr. Sturge-Bally, reminding of the Commission's decisions at its meeting of April 24th and requesting that the said decision be fulfilled. To date, no response has been received to the General Secretary's letter. In the circumstances, the PPP can only conclude that GCOM is not prepared to fulfill either of its two commitments. The People's Progressive Party takes this opportunity to express its deep disappointment with the unprincipled stand adopted by GCOM towards the PPP in respect to its commitments and reaffirms the party's lack of confidence in the chairman of GCOM in particular. That's the first statement. The next statement reads as follows. The People's Progressive Party joins with all progressive, democratic, and peace-loving persons in Guyana and around the world in observing the 36th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Walter Rodney. As we observe this anniversary, we in the PPP look forward to the debate on the report of the Commission of Inquiry into the killing of Dr. Rodney in the National Assembly. The PPP supports the findings in the report and will reject any attempt to either water down the recommendations or denigrate those who contributed to the Commission's work. Shades of evil and transgressions that Rodney fought against continue to haunt us, and we are beginning to see the early signs of a return to vintage Burnhamism being executed unabashedly by the heirs to his dictatorial legacy. The Rodneyite beliefs in racial and working class unity are now being whittled away by the Bornamite beliefs in divide and rule, reminiscent of British colonial rule, are now being executed by the Ministry of Anti-Social Cohesion. Regrettably, this process is being aided and abetted from within by Clive Thomas, David Hines, Rupert Roopnarine, and Maurice Odle, who once openly opposed the PNC and its iron rule, but who, for reasons known only to them, but more particularly because of their deep hatred for the PPP, its members and supporters have chosen to jump into bed with the same people who were part and parcel of the political and coercive apparatus that is responsible for Rodney's tragic demise. Small wonder why these hypocrites, who now speak in glowing terms about Rodney, refuse to appear before the Rodney Commission of Inquiry just to protect their own self-interest and deceptive political interests. Guyanese will not be fooled by the high-sounding press statements and duplicitous, self-serving op-eds that have appeared in sections of the print media on the occasion of the 36th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Rodney. Those who shamefully pretend to be Rodney worshippers and admirers must be exposed for what they are. They are no more than a cabal of pretenders and hypocrites who have long betrayed Dr. Rodney's legacies, having sold themselves like Judases for handsome monetary rewards and perks handed to them by those who have Rodney's blood on their hands. Next statement. The People's Progressive Party condemns the APNU-AFC administration for its callous attitude and gross disrespect meted out to the farming community in Region 5. For several days now, farmers are under flood waters in that region, having been ignored by the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Communities in response to their cries for assistance from government. Areas affected in the Maikoni River are Mora Point, Pine Ground, Forest Savannah, Gordon Table, and Wash Close. Other areas affected are Morai-Kabai, Trafalgar Union, and Lovely Lass. Rice farmers and cash crop farmers have been totally devastated, and the future looks gloomy ahead for them, their families, and the region as a whole. For months now, the Ministry of Agriculture has proven to be a failure and totally insensitive to the farming community in Guyana, irrespective of whether they are cultivating rice or other agricultural products. Sugar workers have also been at the receiving end of the harsh treatment meted out to the productive agricultural sector. The abysmal failure of the Granger administration to address the flood situation in Region 5 is a grim reminder of the incompetence and maladministration of the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Communities. Further, it is another manifestation of the racial and political discriminatory practices of the APNU-AFC coalition administration to treat communities supportive of the PPP in this manner, stating, quote, "They didn't vote for us, so why bother with them? Let them suffer," end of quote. The PPP condemns this deliberate policy and practice by the APNU-AFC towards our farming communities and demands that the suffering population and farming community in Region 5 be given immediate and unconditional assistance to compensate for their losses and to ensure that their livelihoods are maintained and enhanced. The final statement reads as follows. The People's Progressive Party condemns in the strongest possible terms the wanton and cold-blooded shooting to death of 50 persons in Orlando, Florida. It is recorded as the worst killing in recent American history and came on the heels of a series of terrorist-related activities which have left scores of people dead, not to mention the untold number who suffered physical and emotional trauma as a result of such barbaric actions. Actions such as these can only be the work of sick and warped minds, regardless of the motive or motives they may wish to attribute in justification of their murderous actions. The fact that the killings took place at a soft target is suggestive of a terrorist activity, which is a clear violation of the norms of civilized behavior. The PPP calls for enhanced international cooperation to stamp out terrorism, which has now reached alarming proportions, not only in the United States, but in several other countries, especially in Western Europe. It is clear that terrorism has now become a global phenomenon, which requires a collective response from the international community to defeat and seriously injure. The PPP share the pain of all those affected by this barbaric act and extends its deepest condolences to the relatives and friends of those killed, as well as those seriously injured. Thank you.
There you had the statements. Now we're open for the questions. Who will be the first? Now we got Kaichur.
Your statement on the Ministry of Agriculture's intervention or lack of intervention into Region 5, is it entirely accurate? Because I can remember NDIA and MMA, APA, they've moved pumps to Trafalgar, North and South, Ocean. They have making an effort.
When?
Yeah.
Friday?
Yeah. Over the course of the past few days.
Okay. Well, the most I could say that on that matter is too little, too late. The crops have totally been destroyed, devastated. So it's just a question of damage control.
Sir, as a follow-up,
Mhm.
you said that there was a statement that why worry with them? They didn't vote for us.
No, what I meant there is the behavior could be attributed to that kind of behavior or that kind of attitude. They didn't vote us, let them punish, and so forth.
But isn't it true that supporters of the coalition would have been caught up in this mix, and therefore it would have been foolish to adopt such an attitude?
Well, it depends on who, foolish to whom and from whom.
I mean, they'll be punishing their own supporters as well, wouldn't they?
That's for them to decide.
And if I want to talk about Walter Rodney, I mean, 35 and 36th anniversary, we're glorifying him. He died in 1980. Let's assume, as you want to suggest, Bonham killed him. Your party came into power in 92, 12 years later, and did nothing about trying to investigate the cause of this death until 2011, was it? When President Ramatar decided to take action. And that was after the government had been in power for 22 years.
What's the point?
The point is, why this holier-than-thou attitude about Rodney when you yourself sat on the issue and did nothing?
Better late than never. That would be my response. Better late than never. At least it was done.
But you
There's a report in Parliament now. So,
can juxtapose this with the Ministry of Agriculture's response to the floods.
I wouldn't. If you want, you could in your article, but I wouldn't.
Mr. Roy, if I could take you up on your last statement, the shooting in Orlando, I'm sure you know that victims were LGBT members.
I didn't hear that last part.
I said, I'm sure you know that the victims of the shooting were LGBT members.
Uh-huh.
If
No,
I-
I'm not so sure. I heard a report, but I can't be sure. That's not for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there were.
I'm sorry, I can't be sure that that was the case.
Okay.
There've been reports to that effect.
But if I could bring it back home, as a member of the legislature, there are laws in our constitution that promote homophobic behavior. Would you support legislative reform that could avoid this type of behavior, even in the mildest form or to this extent, here and there,
What do you mean? What behavior are you talking about?
attack on members of the LGBT?
Well, I've seen statements by the community recently in the media. They've been making the rounds, meeting with people, and I've seen statements where they have said that this government has been inactive, has not been moving on certain commitments they made. So it's for the government to take action.
But would you, if such action should be brought to the legislature, for your consent, for your input,
Well,
for your party's input?
when we reach that bridge, we'll cross it.
Next. Yes, Shabby.
If I could I get one follow-up?
Follow up to that?
Yes. Are you satisfied with what the PPP has done over the last 23 years while in government for the LGBT community?
That would be left for somebody to assess.
No, but
As a
You-
former
you make
government
that assessment.
they're asking if you
Yes.
satisfied.
You make that
I'm
assessment.
asking you, Mr. Ray, are you satisfied with what your government has done?
I don't
The
see,
new government,
I have not noticed anything that the PVP has done against, to antagonize such a community, or to antagonize such a community.
Shabby.
There's no record of any behavior of that type on the part of the PVP.
Chapter, establishment.
Mhm.
Coming back to the issue of the flooding, the Trafalgar pump, we know they always had an issue of that pump being vandalized.
Mhm.
And we heard that it was vandalized but 2 years ago with the unit of being informed that time.
So,
So did you do anything then to fix it?
vandalization is taking place all around. Up to now, they're vandalizing things. So, I can't say definitively whether any action was taken to correct that situation. The Ministry of Agriculture, who have inherited that situation, they should say something on it.
Rodney,
What happened with them?
I can. But, sir, you were around when Rodney was accused of carrying out attacks against the state, some violent before Congress Place. He attempted to blow up a junction box in Camp Street. And a lot of other violent moves. When that was going on, did you see him as being a glorified person then?
Well, I don't know about those incidents that you're referring to there, but I, as a young man, was at most of his public meetings on the Merriman's Mall, where I listened to what he had to say. And I was at the parade ground when he returned from Jamaica, and there was a big meeting where he was supposed to have spoken, Yuzi Kwayana and Chedi Jagan, and that meeting broke up. Of course, in those days, in the heady days of the WPA, which he eventually emerged as the head of course, he was seen as a person who is likely to replace Mr. Barnum, and winning more and more erstwhile supporters of the PNC over to his cause. And I think that is what was worrying the PNC at that time. Of course, you have to look at the context that obtained in the situation, the context that obtained at the time when Rodney was, you know, making tremendous headway in the political situation. There were a lot of shortages in the country. The economic situation was difficult. A lot of basic food items could not be obtained in the shelves of shops and so forth. And there was all this campaign about rigged elections, lack of democracy, etc. So the conditions under which Rodney emerged created, you know, the subjective situation. The objective situation was already there. So those two factors combined to make Rodney to be the kind of leader that he was at the time. In addition to that, as I said in my statement to the Commission of Inquiry, he was already also having talks with the PPP through Dr. Jagan to see how best, you know, racial and working class unity could be developed. So he was indeed a very fantastic speaker, and he used his ability and oratory to mobilize people. Incidentally, I met briefly with Mr. David Hines one day, not formally by the way. I know a lot of people thought I would met with him formally, but I met with him by a marketplace recently. I were able to engage in a brief discussion. And then I recall that, you know, David Hines, along with another young man from Buxton, were the drummers at every Rodney rally that were held. Well, Hines eventually left the country to pursue academic studies. I can't recall what happened to the other young man that used to be with him, but it's interesting to know that he went off to pursue his academic interests while I am where I am now. So these things tend to evolve in the context of the political evolution of the politics in our country.
But did you support Rodney's move to violence?
No, we never supported that. The PPP never supported any move to violence. We have been always in support of peaceful demonstrations, civil resistance, and civil disobedience activities, and so forth. But insofar as violence was concerned, the PPP never practiced it, and therefore we never supported any organization that practiced violence. Now, I don't know what violence Rodney practiced, because, I mean, him having a radio set in his hand didn't mean that he was violent. It was set up to kill him. So we have to be careful that, and I don't think there was any evidence to prove that he was associated with the burning down of the then Ministry of National Development or National Mobilization. So I can't say that Rodney was a violent person or he promoted violence. He was always at big meetings and speaking and mobilizing people, leading marches and demonstrations. But advocating violence and so forth is another matter. His rhetoric may have been very abrasive and so on, calling Mr. Burnham King Kong, etc. But it's interesting to see that Mr. David Hines, who didn't appear before the Rodney Commission of Inquiry, is now one of the, you know, biggest talkers about defending Walter Rodney, what he stood for. But it was David Hines that was the man that used to sing, liberation bound for part, the PNC go run like grass. Now he's with the PNC.
Well, you're not aware of Rodney being about violence. The government of Jamaica was, the government of Tanzania was.
No, but what the definition, but by definition, what was meant then by violence?
Burning, leadership at any cost.
That's not violence. Leadership at any cost is not violence.
Any cost?
My friend, Martin Luther King led many demonstrations and protests in the United States. It depends on who is defining you as a violent person. If the the ruling class of a particular economic, political, and social background defines you as violent, Nelson Mandela was defined as violent. But by who? So was Mahatma Gandhi was defined as violent, but by who? All great leaders were defined as violent, but their main mission was to accomplish either the national and social liberation of their country or the independence of their country. So I wouldn't go down that road to define Rodney as a violent person. Boredom wanted to see him as violent because it was in his own interest to portray him as that type, to go after him. Cast him in that mode to go after him as an enemy of the state.
Any other questions?
Of the statement?
Well, y'all complete 4 statements. Y'all have more questions on the statements? Yes, Shabna. Shabna, here are you.
Okay. The auditors found that PPP owed NCN a large sum of money. How do you respond to that?
We got enough statements already?
I thought he said
No,
No, I don't think he said that. I think I heard him say that we have 4 statements.
oh,
I would say, no, but I don't,
I have got all the statement.
All right, well,
do they need to take it?
let's proceed.
Yeah, I just asked the question about the PPP owed NCN a large sum of money. How do you respond to that?
Who is saying that?
Auditors found that.
The auditors? Oh, well, the auditors can find a lot of things.
NCN.
Yeah, what they say they owe us for?
NCN accounts, yeah, advertisements.
What advertisements?
that
Where?
He placed with NCN over time.
Where were these ads?
He placed them on
And-
radio and television.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, you play games. You
No, but
know
I hear them talk about billboards too, but I see Granger's face all over the place with billboards.
the party.
Who's paying for that? No, who is paying for those big billboards with Granger's
She
face
don't
on it
like
around the
paying for
country?
billboards that shake back
I am
and-
asking a question. They claim that we owe them for
She
billboards.
don't know NCN.
But
don't
I'm
make
saying-
billboards.
I'm saying that I'm seeing billboards all around the country with Granger's face on it.
Yeah,
Who is paying for that?
not NCN.
Well, I would like to know.
Yeah, but NCN and nobody NCN can't charge.
I would like to know who's
billboards.
paying for those.
Chief, the girl asked you about the ads that you placed on NCN for radio and television.
What happened with the,
She asking you,
yeah.
what are you doing about the big
PPP owed
account?
the money to the
We are not doing anything about it at this point in time. We don't respond to audit reports.
Last week you said that they did send an invoice to you, and you sent a query to NCN asking about this account.
No, I never said they sent an invoice to us. I said, we're waiting. I said, we're waiting for them to send something to us, if they want to send anything at all.
Next.
Yes. What is your take on the parking meter saga and the lack of consultations, as well as the dubious background of the contractor?
I think it will be a disaster. I think it will be a disaster. We have no culture with parking meters in this country. And a matter like that calls for, thorough and widespread consultation with the people of this country, especially the citizens in Georgetown, especially motorists, people who have vehicles, cars, or whatever the case may be. I don't think this is something that should be forced down the throats, rammed down the throats of the citizens of the country. We have to go the democratic way. We have to do this thing in an open and transparent way. There shouldn't be a profit-making activity only. It should be something that should be at the comfort of, motorists in the city. So I think it will eventually end up as a disaster. Already there's a lot of infighting going on in the city council as to who is to get a cut and who is to get, a piece of the action. Y'all should go in there and hear what's going on.
Just a quick follow-up to that. Is this coming out from your counselors at the MNCC?
What is coming up from the
That
councillors?
the infighting. Is this the official,
No, we have other sources other than our councillors.
or what are your counselors saying though?
Councillors are saying precisely what I'm saying, that the need for consultation.
And are
I'm
they-
talking about the consultation part.
Okay, what happened?
There's another part which I spoke about about the infighting and, you know, somebody trying to get a cut and kickbacks and stuff like that.
Have they said whether or not they've been consulted?
The matter has been, you know, initially discussed, and I understand it has gone to some committee, you know, and then afterwards it will come back to the statutory meeting of the council.
Were they told that the mayor is currently in Central America trying to source meters?
The mayor?
Mayor and the town clerk and a team, supposedly?
I'm not aware of that, but I'm surprised to hear that the mayor herself would be looking for parking meters when there are technical people available outside in the country who could do that. Maybe they ought to hire some consultant first of all. So they've gone ahead to procure the meters without even consulting with people. They might eventually end up in a, you know, in a storeroom or the bond on the wharf.
Any other question?
Can you shed some light on the fact that the forensic auditors has uncovered that equipment was being ordered for NCN and was just being parked? It was not being used?
No, I think that's all part and parcel of the attempt to, you know, blame the PPP for something. Because nothing substantial has really, you know, been put out in the public domain. All this is part and parcel of the smear campaign that is going on.
Well, Mr. Roby, a follow-up to this question.
Uh-huh.
Is the party going to further follow up with NCN based on the fact that this audit is out? The audit says that while the audit points out that we were never invoiced for some of these ads because some of them were classified as public service announcements, will the party still be following up? Because I don't know what you said.
No, we're not going to.
Audit says that this is money that is, they didn't say it was owed either, they said you were never invoiced.
Well, I don't think it's for us to follow. It's for the creditors to follow.
Yeah, but the smear campaign continues.
What's smear? Concerning what? He raised the question of equipment. I'm not talking about equipment.
Okay,
I thought you were talking about the ad issue.
but isn't it all, to your perception, isn't it all headed in the same direction? Smear the party's name?
The APNU AFC is resorting to these smear campaigns, whether it is equipment, whether it is advertisements. They're the ones that are bundling all of this together to put the PVP in a bad light. We're not going to get caught up in that game. We're maintaining our focus.
Sir, just quickly, could you give us what is taking place with the young man who would threaten to kill you?
Kill me?
Via his Facebook page.
Mhm.
I know the last time we spoke, you had said that the CID should have been talking to him or something like that.
Mhm.
Has the party gotten any word from the CID on that?
No official word from the police. No official word from the police on the matter so far.
Update us on MP Dharmana's matter.
If I can do what with you?
Update us on MP Dharmana's matter.
Update you? Yes, he did meet with the executive committee of the party. We heard a report from him, or his version of what took place. We took note of all that he said, and we are taking all that he said into consideration.
You share some of what he tell you?
If what?
Will you share some of what he told you?
No, I wouldn't do that because I saw a statement that was issued by his lawyer on the matter. Glenn Hanuman issued a statement on the matter in respect to statements being made either by him or others in respect to the matter.
Should he be prosecuted, how far would the party go to defend him?
Well, I would want to enter the realm of speculation at this point in time. When we come to that bridge, we'll cross it.
Are you at all worried, though, that this incident has tarnished the party's image?
Well, like I told you before, you know, worrying is something that, you know, takes a long time to come to, you know, political people who've been around for quite some time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much.
I never see a smiling just now or something.